Welcome to another episode of the Southern Comfort Podcast. I'm your boy, Big Rich,
Kevin Harris.
and we are the boys of the Maroon Bison. Kevin, brother, how you feeling in sunshine,
The sun,
Florida?
the sun is come back to Florida. We in the 70s now, and I feel good about that, but a little bad because our buddy Travis, who we will have on the show, uh, he
Still
does.
frozen.
He does incredible. He's still freezing, but so he helped design these hoodies for Vote Vets. And Vote Vets is a political advocacy organization for veterans. He helped design these hoodies that talk about the Tuskegee Airmen. And it says diversity is lethality. And so I literally just got it today in the mail, but I'm like, dang, it's warm again in Florida. So I don't know when I'm gonna get to rock this in the near future, but I'm looking for some opportunities. I wish I had that because every day for a minute here, I was just wearing hoodies.
Man, I'm gonna text his ass right now.
You should get one. It's super dope. Like it's super dope. Great marketing. I love it.
I actually remember when I learned about the Tuskegee Airmen, and it was in the 5th grade. I had a teacher named Judith Pradell.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget her. She is, you got those teachers. And Miss Pradell was one of those teachers. And she was adamant about teaching us about the Tuskegee Airmen.
Mm-hmm.
One, because we are, Atlanta Public Schools is predominantly African American.
Mm-hmm.
But two, she was just all about Black and Black history. And her grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. So she was like, "No, y'all gonna learn about this."
Mm-hmm.
We saw the movie with Lawrence Fishburne,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we wanted to try to take. We didn't take a trip, but we had speakers come to talk to us about it, right? Like, so the Tuskegee Airmen was like one of those moments, and for us where it was beyond Dr. King,
Yes.
all right, like. And I always ask people this, like, what did you learn for Black history?
Mm-hmm.
And, outside of Atlanta, outside of Georgia, right? Or just outside of being Black. And they would always just say, "Oh, Dr. King and this, and this," right?
Yeah.
It was never the Joe Lowrys. It was never, right, like, even Mahalia Jackson, A. Philip Randolph, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I just, I'm glad that, like, one, grew up in the South, two, grew up in Atlanta, right? Like,
it's right there.
It's right there.
It's right there. Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. I think like so much of that is fascinating, especially growing up in the South. Like I remember being in school and to your point, like you had that teacher that took like this special interest in you to make sure that you knew Black history. And then a lot of times it really comes from our parents and it comes from like our churches, right? Because we would do like plays and all types of stuff, right? Where you get to learn about these figures. But the point is, you're not learning it in school. And I think that's very likely the case here in the South nowadays, even. And especially with the attacks on DEI, which I don't even understand how is that DEI. That's just history. That's just what happened. But anyway.
Right.
But I can remember being in Alabama, right? We took Alabama history, and I can remember maybe at the very end of the year, we might get a little bit into Black history. And remind you, Montgomery bus boycott, letter from a Birmingham jail, all that happened right here, but we may spend like a little bit on it. But nothing really substantial, right? So like you said, everything had to come from outside of traditional school. And I remember one of my teachers, Mrs. Cunningham, I don't know how she did this. I'm pretty sure she was just going against code or whatever, but she taught us about Paul Robeson. And I didn't know anything about Paul Robeson, right? But the man did everything. He was a singer, actor, playwright, was involved in the civil rights movement, all these different things. But he never would have come up in any of our books. At least not. The only time I heard about him was when I got to Howard. I was like, oh, Miss Cunningham told us about Paul Robeson, but I'm certain that was not in the curriculum. And she was just kind of doing it. So I guess that kind of woke behavior is what they after nowadays. And then with the Tuskegee Airmen, because being in Alabama, we hear so much about Tuskegee
Mhm.
University. So we knew, Tuskegee, that's not just a Tuskegee Airman, that's my boy Lionel Richie, the Lionel
Mhm.
Richie. All of them came out of
Hello.
hello. All of them came from Tuskegee. And I remember right after Obama won, we were doing the inauguration and Congress invited the Tuskegee Airmen to his swearing in. But that's literally all Congress did. They just invited him, but they didn't figure out any of the logistics of letting them know how are they going to get here, how are we going to communicate with them or whatever. So that became my job. And so I got to help escort a group of Tuskegee Airmen to the president's inauguration, and it was terrifying because it was freezing. You know how old everybody was at that time. And my whole fear was that I don't want to lose one of these guys in the cold on when I'm supposed to be responsible for him. But anyway, we got him there safely. And I will never forget taking a second to watch Barack get sworn in. And then I turned around and you see these Tuskegee Airmen struggling to stand up because, again, their age and it's cold, struggling to stand up because they wanted to salute him. And he caught eyes with them and nodded. And I still get chills every time I talk about that. So when I saw that hoodie with the Tuskegee Airmen, I was like, I gotta get this. And I don't even think I got to get a picture with them because you know what it's like when we're working and we're
Yeah,
staffing.
yeah.
You have all these moments, but you're at work. Like you don't get to get a picture. You're like, I'm literally just trying to get them out the cold, but it happened.
'Cause
It
it was
happened,
fucking
bro.
cold.
And I was right there for it. And so, incredible, just decent gentlemen. And one of them, Frederica Whitfield, you remember the CNN anchor? She
Mhm.
was with us that day. Her dad, Tuskegee Airman.
What?
Yep. Yep.
Hmm. You know, we got some moments, and like you said, like we've been around certain times and points, and we don't get photos, and that's one regret that I have just looking back. That's why, like, whenever, so like campaigns typically have like photographers,
Mm-hmm.
special photographers, and you also do develop a bond with the photographers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they take candid photos of like moments behind the
Mm-hmm.
scenes. And like I have some, I posted some of them, and I have some, and I've lost some. I lost one in particular. It was me and Martin Sheen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they go Daisy. Get him, Daisy. Get him. Martin Sheen, who of course played
Wow.
President Bartlett.
President Bartlett
And I'm 6'5". Martin
is
Sheen's
not six
not
five. It's
is not
not.
6'5".
It's not 6'5".
He's probably
Five
5'4",
six.
5'6", yeah. There's and we did an event in Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
in Dayton, because he's from Dayton.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an event where I'm showing him a photo of his high school yearbook picture.
Mm.
And he looks at the photo, and I don't know why. I don't think about it. I don't know why, but says thank you and lays his head not on my shoulder, but right here. And you have a photo of him like basically looking and just like,
Oh my
oh,
God,
and it's just like, oh, why can't I have, why did I lose that? Right. Like,
man.
and it's those photos, right? It's like those just endearing, candid moments
Yeah.
of that get caught, and you're like, man, thank you, because nobody else was, you know,
Everybody's at work, and I remember when I was in the mayor's offices, both in DC and Baltimore, those offices reported up to me, and they were just nice enough just to give me pictures. But I told them, hey man, any photo of anything you ever get with me in it, send it to me. I want it. And you know this from being at my house. You walk through my house, there's pictures everywhere
yeah,
of
yeah,
all of these moments because I just want them. Because it is, man. It's a crazy ride and it should be documented. And my wife gets on to me all the time. and I don't think you do this either, but like she was like, why don't you journal? Had you just been journaling throughout
Yeah,
all these years,
yeah.
you would have all this stuff. And she said now this stuff just lives in your mind. But we do, the podcast, we do get a lot of it out here, but it's just I don't know, the stuff just
It just pops.
you forget that you even knew it and that you were doing it because we don't ever talk a lot about how we put the show together, but it's really not as sophisticated as people might think. We
Not
didn't
at all.
we didn't think we were going to start out talking about the Tuskegee Airmen or Black history or any of that. None of that is literally what we decided to talk about today, but here we are.
Could you imagine if we actually put some true infrastructure behind this, right? Like, y'all motherfuckers would be in trouble.
But I think we would lose something because all the feedback that I get back from people is that they just find it to be very easy and relatable. And I know a lot of folks who reach out to me that says they literally get their quick download on the news from listening to
Much,
us, from listening to us each week, and they think that it's that they're hearing something and things that they aren't necessarily getting in other places where they might get information. So I
you
love that.
you you tell them don't go out there spitting misinformation because we
I
don't.
one of my buddies, I told him that I was just, oh, you should. I don't know about you getting your news from, but you should have other sources too. But I mean,
Validation.
we ain't on here lying or nothing at all. But we just trying to tell tell people our perspectives and opinions. We are not saying we are journalists
Right.
necessarily, but you
Journalists,
ain't getting the the directly, just the facts of what happened. You getting our interpretation of the facts and most importantly, what's not being said.
like, we wouldn't be out here saying crazy stuff like Donald Trump was a pedophile, right? Like, we wouldn't say that.
Would we? I mean, does it need to be said anyway?
I mean, where there's smoke, there's Trump.
My lord, it's yeah. I anyway. I because I know that wasn't on the agenda necessarily for today, but I will just say this. Um, that is gonna go on for a bit longer.
It's gonna go.
Yeah, like this to me feels like, and I don't know that it'll happen, but like if you go back and you read the history of like Nixon and Watergate and how that all came down, it wasn't like boom within a month it was over, right? It was a drill, like it kind of started and it kind of was just kind of there, then it just kind of kept you know death, what they call like death by a thousand cuts.
Mhm.
This is giving me that same kind of vibe with him, and I don't know that it'll necessarily be enough for him to actually get impeached or anything, but like it's gonna be a thing. Like it's
Well,
not gonna just go away.
it's not gonna be enough to get him impeached because then that would mean that they realize they were also wrong and complicit in it, right? And so, it's not gonna be one of those cases of like the Republicans do not want any egg on their face, and if that comes out, that's an egg sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Like
With a side of deviled eggs.
with the side of deviled eggs, right? Like and a pickle to go with
Right,
it,
right.
because you will be in a
You are
pickle,
in a pickle. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, and so they're gonna do all they can to try to cushion the fall because one, they know the fall is coming.
Mhm,
No, it always happens, right?
mhm,
Like nobody comes out of life clean.
mhm,
And just how much will they try to shield themselves from the blowback?
mhm,
That is, I want to see how that plays out, right? Like Republicans are very good at all of that, right? Like we
mhm,
suck,
mhm.
we suck, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
Obama's tan suit was the huge controversy,
Huge,
huge,
huge.
you know.
Huge. And we talked about it on the show. Like, I mean, sometimes you can just have loyalty and stuff to a fault. I do get that, but like, we don't even let it get that far, right? Like, we talked about the Clintons even just having to testify here later this month. I don't even know why Democrats voted for that and helped that happen. That's weak. When we talked about the censoring of Al Green, why the Democrats participate in that too, right? Like, it's not party loyalty for the sake of being loyal to the party, but it's like to your point though, we just like cave sometimes. And and people see it. People see it. And there are times when we need to have a little bit more party unity. And it's just interesting to me how sometimes on some of these issues we pick how we pick as a party when we're just gonna kind of fracture versus
Yeah.
sticking together. Al Green should not have been censored. I'll say it to the end of time, till we're no longer doing this show anymore. He should not have been censored for shaking his cane, and standing up for healthcare. And the Clintons, why are they the first to testify? Right? Like, how
Right.
are you gonna have the
Right.
former president coming up there to testify, but you ain't ask no questions of the current one? Like,
I
come
think
on.
I think we should testify on in order of who appeared in the files
Right,
the most.
right, right.
You know,
You know,
we
and
would be into two administrations if we left it to
I'm
Donald Trump.
telling you, but you know who not gonna be in there?
Right.
My boy Barack. Barack said, "Have y'all seen my wife? Do you,
Res-
do you, do you, bro? I would have been deceased. Do you, have you seen my wife?
Yeah.
She from Southside. Hands would have been laid."
Yeah, man. Listen, we're what? We're 4 episodes in to season 2 now.
See, you always be trying to count, and I just think that's dangerous. And I don't know. I just know we on season 2,
Well, we're
and who
episodes into
knows?
season 2.
Ah,
The beautiful we do this during Black History Month. I think
yes.
that's how we start this up during Black History Month. And like I want people to let that sit for a second because one, Kevin and I know some of the people who subscribe to this, they're listeners. We don't know many of the others. We may never meet them face to face. But this is Maroon Bison, right? This whole show is built on a foundation of our two institutions, Howard and Morehouse, right? Two HBCUs that taught us that our voice, the weight of our voice was far more important and um, realized that it's special before the rest of the world caught up to what we're doing, right? And I still think we still have a ways to go when it comes to Black voices in politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have a flag planted, but there's a lot we need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think everything we do here is rooted in that, right? Like everything we do here is rooted in the foundation we have growing up as Black men in the South, the foundation of growing up as two Black men who understand the importance of education, who understand the importance of community service, who understand the importance of being socially involved, politically involved, and also rooted in what we learned at Morehouse and what we learned at Howard.
Mm-hmm.
So, one, before we get forward, I would like to say a happy Founders Day to all of my Morehouse brothers out there. This is our week, this is our month, but this is also our year, our life, our everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
love you, brothers. I was just with some of them this past weekend, so I get that out there.
Love it.
Uh, uh, but for this month, the stories we tell today and what we talk about, we always try to keep it with the lens on not only what Maroon Bison is about, but with some aspect of Black history.
Mm-hmm.
Um, who does this affect? Who gets left behind? How do we protect what we built here or what we built in the society? That's the thread here, right? And so I want people to remember that, as history continues to be made right now, you know, we are fighting for the things we're fighting for each and every day as people who are socially involved or just citizens in this country, right? Like there's always an element and story that started from the Black culture, right? Like, and I just don't want people to lose sight of that as we start to move forward. And what we want to talk about today, I think we need to do a little recap on what's going on with Minneapolis, and it kind of feeds into everything else today. So, Kev, like a recap on what's going on in Minneapolis, where things are standing right now.
Well, it seems like for the moment ICE has withdrawn. So the operation, the surge as they were calling it, that they were doing in Minneapolis, they are pulling back from that. And all of that extra excess of ICE agents should be coming back from the city, and hopefully they're able to get back to a sense of normalcy. I don't believe they're trying to spin it as we're just pulling back, but that's not what happened here. It was creating all kinds of problems for the administration, and this is an effort to save face. And I think you really have to give credit to all of those people who were in the streets, who did demonstrate, who did take out their cell phones and made sure that all of what was happening there stayed a focal point of the nation's attention, because I do think that that helped to ultimately build a case for them to retreat. And I think it does show an example that we as people and as ordinary citizens, right? Like we do have power. Like our collective voice does carry weight, and we can influence things. And so now they pull back from Minneapolis. We'll have to see what their next play is. We obviously know that they have operations that are happening in other parts of the country, facilities and different things that they're trying to build. But we also know as much as 40% of the people that they have quote unquote apprehended in these operations don't even have a criminal history. So again, the original premise here was that we're going to go after the murderers and the killers and the rapists and all these
And the
other things,
fraud.
and and all of that. But best believe, if that's what they were actually catching, if that actually existed, you know about it 24. They wouldn't be doctoring images of people, putting it on their social media. They wouldn't be saying somebody like Alex Preddy was a domestic terrorist. The dude is literally a VA nurse, right? But he's a domestic terrorist, really. Like, they wouldn't be stretching this way if there was some actual validity here, and clearly there's not. And so you also see it reflected in the polls, right? Traditionally, Republicans have had an advantage over Democrats when it comes to handling immigration. They don't anymore. The polling shows a far more mixed picture, where they're actually losing ground on this issue because of what's happening in places like Minnesota. So, Democrats are going to have a choice here. There's obviously the policy, but there's also the politics. The two are always intertwined, but they're going to make a decision about how they want to play it. And it goes back to one of the things we were talking about in the prior episodes, which, again, my opinion is this is not the issue to shut the government down over, but that's where we are right now. And we'll see, how the politics end up shaking out for Democrats here on this one.
Listen, they sent 3,000. They sent 3,000 agents into Minneapolis, right? On what a fraud investigation. They arrested over 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
They killed 2 people.
Yep.
Did about $200 million in economic damage, and caught 0 people connected to the fraud, right? This was basically a fishing trip, and they dynamited the whole lake
Mm-hmm.
and came home with nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Of the 4,000 people they arrested, like 23 were Somalian,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them were connected to fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Miss me with that shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder what's the next place they're moving on to, right? I think it's a southern state, and I think it has to be Georgia.
Well,
I think they're just gonna play it different here, right? First, the guise is election fraud from a 2020 election, right? We already know that the trucks and stuff are moving here. We already know the ICE agents have been spotted. We already know they have a couple of facilities, but the headquarters is in College Park, but they have different facilities in the rural parts of Georgia.
mm-hmm.
And I just wonder how much now intensified will it be knowing it's different type of blacks down here, you know?
Well, oh boy, probably shouldn't say that, but I was about to say, well, yeah, the Southern black people believe in their Second Amendment rights too. So
And it ain't cold down
they're
here.
you know, so but that's the dangerous part of all of this, right? There are several dangerous parts, but that's one of the dangerous parts too, is because at times it's hard to come to any other conclusion of like, do they want some sort of a race war? Do they want this kind of chaos and division in the country? And unfortunately, like that ups the that ups the temperature, right, in these places to where ultimately you get not good outcomes. And that's absolutely what happened in Minneapolis with Renee Good and Alex Preddy, right? Like they created a situation where you got these untrained ICE agents engaging in terrorizing these communities, and you just thought people were just going to take that. Like you're turning the temperature up when typically the government is there to dial the temperature down to keep everybody safe, right? But we're in a different dynamic now, and you're right, introducing that into a state like Georgia could definitely be problematic. We saw that with the ballots, right, that they just took out of Fulton County, right? They've already attacked Georgia. And so I think you're right. I think if you're Georgia, you have every right to believe that you might be next. I think Maryland is a top place that they might take a look at. I think Virginia is a top any place that's led by a Democrat. But
Yeah.
Georgia in particular is in his crawl because of the election, and I would also say too, a Kentucky with
Mm,
Andy Bashir. So
yeah,
I think
yeah.
any of those southern states have to have their guard up right now for like we could be next.
So, we know that we know that this is the Trump playbook, right? And Governor Walz said it himself. They needed to withdraw, but needed to save face, right? And so the Trump playbook is make a big aggressive move, right? Create chaos, and then declare victory on your way out, right? And and the question Democrats need to be asking isn't um did they leave? Like it's what did they learn from this,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And what can we take away to better ourselves on our end in terms of tactics? And
mhm,
so,
mhm,
we said it twice here. Minneapolis was the headline, but while all eyes were on Minneapolis, Republicans were in their second act. Washington quietly trying to make sure that what happened in Georgia in 2020, where Democrats won two statewide seats, actually, what's been happening in Georgia, right? Like Democrats have secretly been winning back certain seats.
mhm,
They make sure it doesn't happen again. And so nationally or locally, right? And
mhm,
so they got two bills out there. One targets your vote,
mhm,
and the other targets your power bill.
mhm,
But I want to focus on the one that targets the most important one, which is your vote, right?
mhm,
And so that's the Save America Act, right? And so, um, just a quick history: it was introduced by Chip Roy of Texas, and he's one of those Freedom Caucus people. They're hard right, and he's been pushing this bill for years, right?
mhm,
The original Save Act bill started it in the House in last year in 2025, and four Democrats actually supported this bill, right? It stalled in the Senate. It never made it to the floor. But now, this year, he's introducing a new version, which is called the Save America Act. And it passed just this past week with unanimous vote, but only one Democrat voted for it this time. And that's your guy out of Texas. What's the name? Henry Cuellar.
yeah,
Um, and so it's interesting. Mike Lee of the Senate introduced it. We'll introduce it, and Lindsey Graham's a co-signer. But it's interesting that we have, one Democrat supporting this time. And typically, and Kevin, explain to why or Democrat would typically support a bill this atrocious, and it's mainly to try to stay in office to keep his seat.
Think I think yes, that might be a reason why. But but it also fundamentally goes back to like there's also the personal, right? Like who are you as a person?
Mm.
Does it you if you just have to do that just to have that seat, and you know that that's not good public policy and that it's going to hurt more people than it's going to help, does it mean that much to you to have power? And so, in my point, you're no different and no better than the people. Even if you disagree with it, but you vote this way, you're no different than the folks trying to push this, and the politics isn't going to work out for you, right? Like, so anyway, so I don't know why you wouldn't just actually vote your conscience. And there's no way that any person of conscience could look at legislation like that and think, yes, this is good for the country, this is good for democracy, this is good for the ideals that we profess to have as a country. And the legislation is unwarranted, right? It's a problem in search of a solution. I'm sorry, it's a solution in search of a problem. Um, there is not massive voter fraud in this country, right? There are not tons of um, folks coming into the country, right, with
Voting.
the scheme that we have with this intention to vote. I mean, just think of, even if you're not a political scientist or a public policy expert, right? We all have some level of common sense. So if you are an undocumented person, you gonna walk into a place and say, here's my name. I would like to vote. No, they don't do that, right? That's not real. And then even if they're here trying to go through the system, the normal place, it could take anywhere from 7 to 10 years before you can become a legal citizen and an eligible voter. So this would have to be the dumbest plan ever for us to like steal elections. The only voter fraud that is happening is coming from
The
the
Republicans.
the Republican, and this is to me is a form of voter fraud to use your legislative power in that way. This thing, if you don't have a passport, is going to make it harder for you to be able to vote. If you are a recently married woman and you decided to take your husband's last name, it's going to make it harder for you to be able to vote. If you live in a rural community, it's going to make it harder for you to be able to vote. If you are lower income, it's going to make it harder for you to be able to vote. None of those. So where within any of those populations, right? Are have you seen any reports of where married women are committing voter fraud? Have you seen any reports where people without passports are committing voter fraud? People in rural communities committing voter fraud. So what exactly is this legislation supposed to be solving? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
And to break down what you're saying even more, so when he talks about um sort of these suppressions that they're implying, right? So the bill is actually requiring you to provide proof of citizenship in person for you to vote, right? So to register to vote in any federal election, a standard driver's license won't cut it, right? You need a U.S. passport or a birth certificate. And so when Kevin talks about, he says, low income people, how many low income people actually have a passport
Or or
or a birth certificate?
or if you are black and of a
Mm,
certain age,
mm,
right? You may have neither. You
right,
may have neither,
right. And
right?
so, that's the
Because you
situation.
could have been born at home, like my father-in-law. Okay, I think he has a passport because they went out of the country to see my wife while she was in grad school. But like, I don't know that at 83 he can put his hands on a birth certificate.
Right. Listen, my mother's birth certificate has her own name on it, right? Uh, Trouble that you get when you're of that age and a
Yeah,
black person,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
like we said, not born in a hospital. Sometimes the nurses don't even care about the mother, that they write anything down.
Anything. Could have misspelled it.
Like,
Could have
well,
done
that's what hers
anything.
is.
Yeah. So
Her name is Ruby,
right.
but on the birth certificate it says Ruth. Yeah,
So it's all foolish, and ultimately what happens with a lot of policies like this, which ultimately why it ultimately falls down on their heads, is that it ends up hurting more than the people they intended to hurt. It ends up keeping out more of the people, because this is about making sure black and brown people can't vote, right? And can't
right.
participate in elections. Um, but there's lots of folks who are just lower income, live in rural communities, or like I said, recently married women, right? Um, and oftentimes these policies end up hurting more than the people they intended for it to hurt, and that ends up being the unraveling of it. And one example I'll point to is all of the attacks on affirmative action, right? We now know from the most recent data, the people who are being disadvantaged the most by what Trump did on affirmative action are actually white men.
White, yes, yes. So, and I actually think this might blow back in their face,
Yeah.
because this is going to hurt their votes actually more than it hurts ours, I think.
I think so too, but one thing we should be, because this is clearly very terrible stuff we're talking about here, but we should be very clear about a couple of things. It passed the House, still has to go through the Senate. The Republicans don't have the votes to get it out of the Senate. They would have to do something like get rid of the filibuster to be able to do that. And John Thune, who is the majority leader, has already said he does not intend on doing that. So as of right now, this doesn't look like it has a pathway to actually make it to Trump's desk for him to sign it and become law by the elections. And so, but you still see Trump already tweeting and putting stuff out there saying, we're going to have this. And I don't need permission from Congress. Whether Congress does it or not, we're still going to have this to protect our elections, so on and so forth. So, all of that to say, man, our guard just has to be up. Has to be up.
Yeah, and again, we like numbers.
Hmm.
So for folks who want to hear numbers, 21 million Americans do not have citizenship documents readily available. 2.6 Americans have no government issued ID of any kind. 69 million American women have a birth certificate that does not match their current legal name after marriage or name change. Uh, uh, there aren't non-citizens. These are eligible voters who have faced new barriers under this law. And so
Yep.
it is going to cause, and I think Thune knows that, and like you said, the Senate math is going to math up right? I think it is going, once again, I think it will die and not even hit the floor.
Yep. Yep.
But Trump has threatened an executive order, right? And so again, right, when you do something like that, it's not going through the democratic process, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's what, by him doing that, it becomes now an ultimatum. Um,
And
and I hope people start realizing that. I hope his people start realizing that.
and also again that none of that's legal, right? Like the Constitution is very clear. The president doesn't have any role in the administration of elections. Not really. Like it's primarily driven by state and local, and then there's some congressional at the end of it to certify things. But like the president themselves don't really direct much around elections, and like that was by design, right? We wanted to get away from having kings and
Right,
queens, right? And so we tried to build in a system of protections so that whoever is there, this is the person who was actually chosen by the people, and they're doing everything they can to subvert that. And like the last thing I'll say, man, is I don't know where my birth certificate is. Like I would have to look for it. I don't know right off the top of my head. I know where my passport is, but I don't know where my birth certificate is. Never needed it. Never, never, never. It was never a question to now. I don't know.
uh,
Like I would have
Yeah.
to, at this ripe age of 41, I would have to call my mama and say, "Ma, do you happen to have a copy of my birth certificate?" She likely does, but I don't know where it is. I have no
Man, listen,
idea.
if she like mine, she'll be like, "I don't know where that thing is. It's somewhere in there. It's somewhere. I got it somewhere. Go look over there." Um, so look, the bill may stall in the Senate. The executive order may get blocked in court. But Trump doesn't need either of that to happen, right? Because all he needs is the story, right? And that's all he wants. While Democrats are trying to defend the right to vote, he's telling his base, "Look, I'm fighting fraud," and that's all he wants is the story, right? And I think we get too busy swatting at the ball
Mhm.
that we miss who's actually throwing it,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And so, um, I think that's one of the many fires that we have going on in America. Um, uh, and I think in this playbook of Trump,
Mhm.
it's just not happening at the federal level. Of course, we talked about how it's happening in Georgia, how we mentioned we flipped seats both nationally. Since 2020, we've been flipping seats here in Georgia.
Mhm.
Most recently, we flipped two public service commission seats
Mhm.
um, last November, and we did it on the message of affordability.
Mhm.
Uh, and what Republicans see right now is they said we cannot let that happen anymore. And so one of the test cases is Alabama, your home state,
Mhm.
and they're trying to do something with the power bill there, right? Go ahead.
I mean, the power bill, but really it's more so linked to the last issue we were just talking about, which is suppressing the
Hmm.
votes of people. So in Alabama, they're trying to change, instead of having the public service commissioners be elected like they are in Georgia, and where Democrats just won big, they want to switch those to becoming appointed positions.
Hmm.
Now, due to vacancies, coincidentally, everybody that's on there now is appointed by Republicans. Republicans control everything. And I don't even have it in front of me, but probably not in our lifetime. When was the last time there was even a Democratic public service commissioner anyway in Alabama? Because you'd have to win a statewide election to be able to do that. So this is all controlled by them anyway. And so if people are unhappy with the results on that public service commission, that has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans needing more power to just appoint the people who have those seats versus those folks having to stand for election and people having a voice and a choice. And I think part of this is they took a look at what happened in Georgia, utilities, Alabama Power, all of that stuff, right? Those are big players politically. And Republicans just don't want to take any chances. So they said, you know what? We're just going to change the law and we're just going to put the people there that we want. But none of that is about an effective outcome for the citizens because, again, they've already been in control, right? And they still haven't gotten your power bill down. So they're going to try to tell you that it's about efficiency and good government and making sure we have competent people there. But the same people who will be picking these public service commissioners are the same people who've always had power there. So this ain't about your power bill. This is about their power to once again exclude people from participating in these conversations around who makes the decisions about their lives.
Yeah, what's interesting is your girl, Senator Linda Coleman, was a co-sponsor of this bill, right? But she heard from her constituents and flipped to no,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Right, which is wild.
Mhm.
The other thing that's interesting is Alabama has the highest residential electricity rate in the South.
Mhm. Mhm.
What y'all doing over there? Like,
I
to
mean,
have no big cities, no big metropolis areas,
we ain't running no lottery, so I don't know where is all the power going. I don't know.
right?
I
I mean, well,
don't
we know
know.
where the power's going, but
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't
um,
know.
And so I think right now, you know, they saw what happened in Georgia, and there are 3 current PSC seats in Alabama. Like you said, they're all Republicans, and those were actually all appointed as well.
Mhm, mhm.
But 10 people are just qualified to run for the 2 PSCs that are up in November,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so, you know, I also think they see the writings on the wall, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Um, and what I mean by that is you got people like Randall, and you got, you know, a new congressional seat that's there now in Shamar Figures. And now they know that, you know, if the math is mathing and the numbers are there, right, they could lose some seats if that black belt turns out,
mhm, mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Particularly in state elections, right? Where, the turnout is higher in a federal race, but in a state race for governor, attorney general, any of those types of things, there's a chance with the right amount of turnout, where Democrats can do better and should be doing better. And so I think that Alabama Democrats should follow the lead of what Georgia just did with their PSC races and really make this about a issue around affordability, and really beat that drum. And, we got Doug Jones now running for governor. So it'll be interesting to see how he positions himself on this. But I do think that it's a good issue for Democrats in Alabama to call out both of them. Like, these guys have dropped the ball. They've letting your electricity bills get out of hand. And now this whole mess about we got to appoint the PSC, they're just trying to cover up for their failure. That should be the
Right,
message.
right. You know, they're not afraid of the issues. They're afraid of you,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Let that sink in, right? They're not afraid of the issues. They're afraid of you. And I think sometimes knowing that is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you know that they're afraid of you, right? Like that gives you more power than you realize. And I think we just do a bad job of harnessing that to our, to our benefit.
Yeah. Well, it's like we say all the time, right? We said this, I think, in the last episode around voting, right? And and
Right.
and utilizing that more as a tool. And right, like if the in the Save Act, right? Like, if it didn't matter, if your vote didn't matter, why are they always trying to take it from you?
Right.
Right? They're afraid of you. They're afraid of you voting. They're afraid of you actually participating in the process. And so we're gonna make the PSC people appointed. Like you said, that ain't got nothing to do with them bills being high. Them bills been high.
Been
That's
high.
about them making sure you can't participate, because if you did participate, they might not like the outcome.
Right. Right. So we've seen what Republican governance looks like in Alabama, right? In Montgomery, which is the state capital,
Mhm.
is where they legislate.
Mhm.
And, they try to take your vote. They try to protect the utility. They suppress accountability. But let's go ahead and take a ride with me,
Mhm.
pimpin'. Let me show you where we kick it at.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? To quote the great philosopher T.I.,
The great
Clifford
philosopher.
Harris.
Did I ever tell you that's my grandfather's name?
Clifford Harris? Oh, yeah, you did. You did. You did.
Clifford Harris.
The original tip. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So look, ride with me. You know what I'm saying? For a bit. Let's ride up the road for an hour up north, um, and show you what real democratic governance looks like when it comes to actually doing the work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And of course, I'm talking about that great figure, that Morehouse brother of mine, uh, Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, he rolled out the same week that the Save Act passed in the House.
Mhm.
Birmingham's great mayor, Randall Woodfin,
Mhm.
launched the Black Male Initiative,
Mhm.
which is basically an early intervention program for boys ages of 18 to 14, and is geared towards, trying to get them more involved to help lower uh, the crime rate, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And to his credit, Birmingham homicides in Birmingham have reduced 69% so far in 2026.
Mhm.
But recently, they've had 4 homicides that occurred, and 8 teenagers was charged.
Yeah.
And I know this is something Randall is near and dear to his heart, particularly, personally, family history with his brother and his nephew.
Mhm.
And then overall, the numbers are moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
But the youth trend is not,
Mhm.
and it's demanded action. And he got what he does. He brings people together to help try to solve and get solutions.
Mhm.
And he has this black male initiative going on, which is it came out of his Birmingham Crime Commission. And the program is just designed to generate young black boys and get them involved, and it's for them and it's by them, right? And they're help creating this program. And I'm happy for him. It's a goal that he's looking to try to get it going through 2030, which is reduce youth crime altogether, improve the graduation rate, better school attendance, and expand workforce placement
Mhm.
for these young men. And
Mhm.
hats off to my brother. I really appreciate all he's doing.
Yeah. So I saw that and I loved it. And even when he was running here this last time, it was something that he talked about wanting to do in a new term, right? If he won re-election. And Randall always does what Randall says he's gonna do.
Yes,
And
yes,
and so this is the fruition of that. And I had a lot of thoughts about it. One is my first immediate thought was it shows the power of representation of and black men being represented in these spaces, right? It hits harder for him as a black man who's a black man of power who has his own, went through family issues with this as well. Um, in terms of how he wants to wield that power, and how he views and sees other black men who, but for some twists and turns in his own life could have been very different. He might not be Morehouse graduate, Mayor Randall Woodfin, right? He could have been any of those four that you just
right,
mentioned that lost their
right,
lives on the streets. But for him to sort of say during my time as mayor, it's not that the other mayors before him couldn't have done this or that this wasn't a problem there, but his experience, those lived experiences make a big difference. And there's a direct correlation between who you elect and who you give power and what they choose to focus on. And this is an example of that. And I remember, even with when Barack was president, helping to launch My Brother's Keeper, that's because the president was a black man. Right, that made it. The other presidents could have focused on that specifically, but they didn't. Right, a part of why he did was because he was a black man who also spent time organizing in the South Side of Chicago, seeing how we kind of get weeded out before we can go to Harvard Law School and all these other things, like he did. Again, but for some twists and turns, could have been a very different life for Barack Obama. Right, and I remember even being in Baltimore launching initiatives that specifically focused on this. I remember one year, um, the overwhelming majority, 70-80% of the homicides for that year were black men. They were black men like that. And at that time, Baltimore was having homicides in the hundreds. And so you're talking about 200, 250 homicides, 80% of them were black men. And so we launched some initiatives, and was one of my first times working most extensively with Jamal Bryant, who we talked about specifically trying to serve some resources there. But a part of the reason why we were able to do that is because one of the senior counselors to the mayor, right? I was there and I was a black male. And I said we should pay attention to this. There were other black men in the cabinet, right? The police commissioner was black, all these different things. But I was the most senior in that way, right? I don't know that, but for me sitting in the room with my lived experience saying, hey guys, we should maybe look at this a different way. And so everything that Randall's doing to me, it speaks about the importance of representation and what can happen when black men participate and we show up and we're at the table. And then the second thing that spoke out to me too is, again, honestly, how smart the politics are. black men and the party, there's work that needs to be done on that relationship, and doing things specifically as plainly as he's doing it and specifically targeted to help black men to improve our outcomes just in life overall is something that's needed in our platform. It's something that's needed in our politics as a party. And again, he's not waiting on DC to come around to that. He's just leading. And
Right.
hopefully other folks in the party follow his lead. And it's just another one of those examples of, the South got something to say. And
Right, right, right. Bruh,
we get some things right down here.
Randall didn't call a press conference to announce a study. He didn't form a task force just to form a task force, he launched a program. He named a director. He set goals through 2030 and started rolling it out the very next week,
Mhm,
right? Rolling
mhm.
it out citywide. That's governing by conviction,
Yep,
not by committee,
yep.
right? And like listen to what he's doing, right? The city partnered with approximately 72 barbershops across Birmingham, right? As outreach hubs for mental health services,
Mm,
workforce development,
mm,
and an education resource, right? And every single one of them said yes, right? And so think about that, right? Right. The barbershop is very entrenched in our community. It's not just where you get a haircut, right? Like you and I both know it could be a therapeutic session for
mhm,
black men.
mhm,
It's where the truth gets told. It's where serious conversations and meaningful conversations are had. Um, and it starts from a boy just sitting in a chair and trusting a relationship with a man and a blade,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Like straight up.
mhm,
And we're taught to sit in that chair, don't move, and listen to what this person has to say,
mhm,
and form great relationships with our
mhm,
barbers,
mhm,
right? And so,
mhm.
um, just thinking about that moment and Randall understanding the dynamics of that,
The importance, right,
right, the
right. You
importance.
had to live it, right? Like no public policy school, no social work program is gonna tell you that that's probably the best on-ramp, right, to get somebody onboarded and connected with these services. You had to be a young black boy actually going to the barbershop to know
Right.
that that would work.
And I think what Birmingham is doing and what Randall is doing is refusing that narrative about, uh, we've always been told that black boys are a problem,
Mhm, mhm,
always, right? Like we know, you and I know the feeling of when a woman clutches her purse or hesitates to get on the elevator when we're there, or, calls the cops on us because we just look suspicious because we're either in a nice vehicle in the wrong neighborhood, right? Or, you know, having a conversation with our spouse, right? And so Birmingham, Randall, and this program is refusing that narrative, not by arguing with it, but by building something that makes it irrelevant. And
mhm.
that's what this program does. And so I really appreciate my boy Rand. You know what I'm saying? I just
Again,
he
showing the benefits of
showing
that HBCU education too, because
right,
you think about the world differently, and you are taught that you don't just go on and do all these great things and never look back. You create opportunities and pathways for other folks to come on behind you.
right. And so again, in Black History Month, history again is being made, right? We're gonna look back on this
Mhm,
20, 30, 50, 60 years from now and say, look at the impact and how this started, because this is going to spread, right?
mhm,
Like
mhm,
this isn't just going to happen in Birmingham, it's going to happen all across the South, right?
mhm, mhm,
You know,
mhm,
and I think once again, Democrats need to take note. It is individuals like Randall Woodfin, it's individuals like Brandon Scott, it's individuals like Andre Dickens,
mhm,
it's individuals like Christian Wise Smith
mhm,
that they continue to glaze over and don't invest in
mhm.
early and build out, because they are the future leaders. and their voices are being heard. But not only are their voices being heard, they're actually doing things that actually matter and
Yeah.
getting shit accomplished.
Yep. Absolutely. 1,000% agree. And every elected executive, right? Democratic executive should be doing something like this, right? It's not just about smart policy, but it's also smart politics, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason to not pursue this.
So yeah, I think this is a good time for us to close it out. We want to close it out on a high note. You know what I'm saying? Um, but to recap, right,
Yeah.
on the Save America Act, right? Stop playing defense on the framing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we know that 83% of Americans support some form of voter ID, including, you know, far more majority of Black Americans. Uh, you don't want to win the argument on arguing against ID. You want to win the argument against the 23 million Americans that this bill will lock out, right? Name who they are. Humanize this
Yeah.
for the people, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I think push Trump, tell him to go ahead with the executive order. The court's already gonna say they're gonna block it, right? Make him look like an idiot and call him out for what he is. It's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, and then we're gonna send ICE agents to the polling place. But to your earlier point, though, so much of that is not about any of it actually going through, right? It's about just creating, sowing doubt, right, around our elections, and for that to be coming from the top government official in our country, right? It's disturbing. Like we're supposed to be this proud beacon of light democracy.
Uh-huh.
That's what we're still supposed to be striving toward. But it's just another example of where we've ceded moral authority in the world
You know what?
again on anything. Like how we
We
gonna go talk to the Iranians about their elections?
why I just want us. I mean, looking at the Save America Act as one situation,
Yeah.
I want us to be more proactive, right? Like if we know this is coming down the pipeline, and if it does come down the pipeline, and even if it doesn't,
Hmm.
why don't you fund a document access program, right?
Well, well,
Help.
that's the other part, right? That part is intentionally left out because if you're going to mandate something, right, then you typically the other part of the legislation is if you're trying to legislate responsibly, you make sure that the impacted people have access to it, right? They wouldn't mandate your kid being well, they might now, but if you're going to mandate, say your kid had to be vaccinated before they can go to school, you're going to make sure that no matter where that kid is on the socioeconomic ladder, that they can go get that vaccine. In fact, you might even give it out in schools. I remember at different times having school nurses in school where you could get the shots with your parents' permission, right? So if we're going to require and mandate that people have to have all these documents, and you know that there are millions of people who don't do it, where is the process then for them to get access? And that's the point, Richard. It's not about access. It's not about access. They don't want you to have access. It's
Yeah.
not that they don't know how to pass good bills or write good legislation. This ain't intended
Right.
to help you.
Right. Right. Listen, you don't win a chess match by waiting for your opponent to make a move, right?
Yeah, that
Demo-
too. Yeah.
Democrats just need to be 3 moves ahead, and the board is already set. And
Hmm.
so, why not again help constituents get their birth certificates, right? And updated IDs, right? Be proactive, right? And stop panicking every time shit like this comes about. Um, you know, so we talked about Birmingham, we talked about Alabama as a whole, right? Like
Hmm.
they're trying to, they're Republicans in their case study on the PSC and, um, the study to replace it and try to appoint people to the position. We're talking about Randall and how he's combating that. Um, I just think for our voters, I think you guys need to, for our voters and listeners, I think it's time for us to really get involved. Or say it again, time and time again, get engaged.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we already know who the Mamba Moment is going to, right? Randall. Randall, I think, is a two-time Mamba recipient.
Yeah, Randall.
Yeah.
I would give it to Randall, and then I would also give it to all of our wives. That me, you, and Stu, because we were recording this right around
Yes.
Valentine's day, and if y'all wives are like mine, she's extended her shit into a weekend. It's a Valentine's Day weekend, so we still got shit to do today. But I would give it to all of our wives as well for putting up uh with us, because at different times we need different things, and
Yes.
a lot of times they're the ones, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're the ones that help on the good days and the bad days. And no matter what it might look like to everybody else, like, oh, it's great y'all doing this, like y'all don't even know I even want to get up today. But for that woman. So I give it to our wives.
Yeah. Yeah. I listen every day. I know mine is for folks who know me know that she for her to be married to me means she put up with a lot.
And for y'all, look, and we asked, I kept telling Aura all the way up to the wedding day. I kept telling, like, it's not too late. You sure? And she kept saying yes, to her credit.
Dope.
So there you go.
Dope. Yeah. Listen. The everyday MVP. I really appreciate y'all. That's Southern comfort for y'all, right? This is no consulting fee. This is free game. The free game that we give you. Stay sharp, stay engaged, and I guess we'll see y'all next week.
Absolutely. Peace, y'all.
We we out.
Peace.